You've touched on a couple of points I want to kind of illuminate a little bit here. I take your point that the Libertarian Party really should appeal to both the Democrats and the Republicans in some ways, because when you talk to them individually, it always boils down to, well, I don't want people in my bedroom. I don't want people to tell me what to do. I want more freedom. But at the same time, they may want more security, and they think that's government. What I'm trying is, why do people think the libertarians are anarchists? They think, oh, you don't want any government. And I don't know if that's true. I think what you're telling me is that you're trying to find the proper role of government, and you're against excessive government, but maybe you might speak to that general perception as the Libertarian Party being an anarchist. And I know the difference between an anarchist and an anarcho-capitalist, but for our viewers, maybe you could help with that.
Right. Well, and this is actually an ongoing conversation internally within our own party. We do have people who are anarchists or ANCAPs, as you might hear. They'll take things from a little more absolute standpoint, which that's the from a philosophical standpoint, you can't get any more libertarian than absolutely no government, because you're completely free. Aside from, as in the purpose of our republic, the rule of law, without it, you have no freedoms, because you couldn't leave your property at risk of somebody else taking it or harming you. And so we have laws to help protect ourselves. And some of the anarchist standpoints on that is, we can perform the functions of government through voluntary associations. You can have a for-hire police force. You can have a for-hire fire department. And actually, the government, at one point in its early stages, actually operated that way. And so that's the one facet of the libertarian platform that you hear people talk about. But we also have what you might consider minarchists, and you'll hear that term within our ranks as well. And they say, okay, we understand these platforms. We believe there is a role for government in these absolutely minimum levels. And so we continue to have those conversations. And it's really for people to get involved and understand how libertarianism works. It's if they try to take it all on, it's like drinking from a hose. So the best way that I say, kind of as you start to get the hang of the idea of it, is just looking at from some of the basic fundamental principles. Well, should the government be able to tell you what you can put in your mouth as far as food goes? We have people that like to be able to buy raw milk and not have to have it pasteurized or processed, and be free of hormones. And so why should the government dictate to me that I can or cannot have that? Just the same thing as if you want to enter into a private transaction with another person to sell a product or goods or services, why should the government have any say about how you conduct that transaction? So these are kind of the starting points of that conversation that we help introduce people into the ideas about how libertarianism works. And as you start to get into that, dig deeper into how our government should have a relationship with society, if it even should have a relationship at all, then you can kind of see where that trajectory goes from a libertarian standpoint. One of the big ones is education. We believe education should be absolutely a most local issue. Nobody should have a higher say about how their children are educated but the parents themselves. And so that's why you'll hear quite often, we want to abolish the Department of Education. It didn't exist until the earlier parts of the 20th century. And we seem to have done just fine without it beforehand. And this country had built one of the strongest economies in the world before that was even considered. So, there's a lot to do in that realm, but educating people is certainly important, and getting people to understand what the concepts are behind the proper role of government is certainly essential.